Susa Pop zum Beispiel, sie steht da drüben und wird gleich beginnen mit einem kleinen Einführungseintrag und dann geht's los mit dem Panel Smart Cities in Visible Cities, also wie kann der öffentliche Raum von Urban Media profitieren? Das ist die Frage. Initiiert wurde das Ganze vom Public Art Lab, da gehört Susa Pop auch zu, sie ist Mitbegründerin und Geschäftsführerin, Industriedesignerin, EU-Kulturmanagerin und sie kuratiert und produziert städtevernetzende Projekte. Ich würde sagen, du startest einfach und holst den Rest dann gleich dazu. Viel Vergnügen.
Okay, so I will go on in English. I want to welcome you to the Urban Media Lounge this late afternoon, and yes, I'm very happy to welcome our guests for the Urban Media Lounge. First of all, you will hear a keynote speech of Tim Edler with the topic urban space. How can urban space benefit from urban media? Then we will go on with a panel. Tim Edler will join our panel and we will go on with the panel, and here I'm very happy to invite our panel guests today from Rome. We have here Oriana Persico and Salvatore Iacinesi from Art is Open Source, as well as Khaldoun Al-Agha from ICT Labs in Paris, as well as Evanela Lappi from Focus Fraunhofer Institute. This panel will be moderated by Martin Spindler, who is an expert in the field of Internet of Things. Then after this panel, we will leave the space and go to the open space, where we will go on with yes, I would say thematic roundtables. So this means that we here expect you, some of our hosts of the network. It's more drinking and eating and discussing format. Our hosts expect you at thematic roundtables, and I'm very happy that Sibille Kubale from Enterprise Europe Network will host one table to the topic European funding programs for smart cities. Then we have here Julian Oliver, who will present his project Newstweek, and Khaldoun Al-Agha will give us, will present the topic of the digital cities, the citizen-centric model within the digital cities, the ecosystems, and again, Salvatore and Oriana will let us know more about the Living Cities project, and I will present the Connecting Cities project to you. So we have a whole late afternoon together, and you are very much invited to join us. I'm also very proud later to present you our Urban Media Cultures publication, which is, yes, brand new. And this lounge is a good opportunity again to see our network, to get together and yes, to exchange in this field of urban media, which is still a very young field. Those who don't know our activities, we organized the Media Facades Festival, Berlin 2008 and Europe 2010, and the whole field we explore now for, I would say, 5 years. And what is very important or very interesting for us is to explore the communicative potential of urban screens and media facades. Normally they are display commercial content, advertising, but as they are based in the public space, we invited artists to those activities like the Media Facades Festival to develop site-specific project and to reclaim the screens. So, of course, there's always the question, what function are having these urban media facades for smart cities? And we are coming from, yes, I would say from a cultural point of view, which is a very idealistic point of view. And so our question is what can they provide a communication platform with new forms of participation? Or do they function as boards of visualization of our urban environment and can connect different local scenes from European cities? So I would stop here and would invite our keynote speaker, Tim Edler, who will give us at the interface of urban media and architecture and internet, I guess, a very interesting keynote speech to this topic. Can public spaces benefit from urban media? So welcome to Tim Edler. Thank you very much. Was meinst du? Du hast keinen Vortrag gezeigt, war das Absicht? Ah, okay.
Oh, sorry. Sound? Super. Good afternoon, my name is Tim Edler from Realities United. I'm sorry for my show, it collapsed, so I made a makeshift show. My question today is, will urban space benefit from urban media? And to give a quick answer to what I'm trying to say is, I try to be very destructive now and destroy as many illusions as possible to possibly open up space for more experimentation. Okay, I think if you follow the discourse on urban media, urban screens, urban intervention on various levels, there's a lot of connection made between these projects and the idea of a more democratic, participatory, open, interactive urban space, and the hope that these technologies, these approaches will change the cities towards that direction. My question is it realistic to believe that the advent of these technologies and approaches will have that effect? And first, or maybe the first remark on that is, on a very general view, is that, of course, we do have something that is very expensive that is brought into cities, and usually things which are very expensive, as these screens still are mostly very expensive, need a financial model in the background that makes them, that people can justify them, I would say. And there are a few exceptions. I could show some of the work we did, but as a keynote speaker, I wouldn't do that, where there's sort of an indirect contribution made by, let's have a bit of art to justify something which is rather commercial. So we have a commercial screen that is then, as there is an art program, is given a better time or bigger format, and where the art actually serves as something that makes the commercial impact even stronger. So I'd rather be skeptical about that. The second reason maybe where I'm skeptical is that most of these projects continue to look at the inner city. The inner city is a place where everything happens and which is the main focus of most of the commercial activities in the city, and also the main focus of a speculative architecture and city development that we know of. And so if you look, for instance, at this is an image of the Bundeskanzleramt, the Chancellor Ministry in West Germany, built after the Second World War, which had a very modest architectural expression. We can say that since these days there has been a large swing back to a very expressive and very status symbol oriented way of building cities, and which makes me skeptical about trying to work on the same stage as these people, being present at the very center and trying to compete against that type of financial pressure that we see in these areas. The other thing is about, which makes me nervous, is that the idea of having these screens in the city very often comes along with an idea that something is staged. It's an event. We have these screens, and along with the screen comes a program, we have spectators, and so there's a whole trail of things, ideas that are now brought into the city which are foreign to the city. The city is not an event space by nature. There are event spaces even since antique times, and there's a city, and the city is a rather open space which does not have this singular functional idea to make it as a space to experience something, and of course it does not have a narrative. There's nothing that starts, that ends, but it's a continuous action where the influence of the facades is rather small. Wherever you have an actual ritual action of people in cities, usually the influence of architecture is rather low, and it's very difficult to construct a bridge between our conventional, traditional means of staging life in a city to the idea that architecture should play a major role in that. Maybe the only exception being totalitarian states where they actually did prolong the idea of having this ritual public event, going to the facades, going to the buildings, etc. But I think that is nothing that we really have in mind. Maybe in our cultural context, the only thing I could really think of is political demonstrations taking place where you have banners, etc. in the city. So I think there's very limited base on which we could say that the city actually is the best place to land for that. And also I'm, again, another one, number 4, I'm a bit skeptical about the issue of participation. Participation is something, if you come from an architectural, urbanistic form of view, participation is always the answer if the major system fails. In Germany we had, after the war, the Trümmerfrauen, people like common people who basically their job was to take away the rubble. And I think in all failing systems you have the phenomenon that the public can come in, help until the original state is restored, and then there are mechanisms to get the public on the side. And today also the issue of participation is mainly dealt with in architecture in places where you are not so sure about the success of your planning. If you plan a quarter for living, you are nervous about if people would accept what is built, if there's a peaceful environment, etc. Whereas in situations, as mentioned before, with a high financial pressure, a high amount of control by police, etc., usually participation plays a minor role. But why participation? I think, to be honest, participation is a disguise. Hidden behind the agenda of participation, I think, is a lack of solid, profound, artistic or aesthetic or intellectual approaches for things that could happen on the facades, and in a similar way, like in the sort of like unstable post-war situation, you have the public come in to I don't know, do the work of trying to find a language for interactive, participatory environments, because you as an artist, if you are the artist, don't know really. At the same time, I think participation is also something that is not such a good description for something else which I see happening very much. I think we all, or many of us, know these examples, these screenings, sort of an hijacking of facades by Graffiti Research Lab, where I think it's a very basic idea of a struggle between who's got the ownership of these facades. Is it them? You know, the financial people, long-term capitalists, urban investors, return of investment, or is it us? And I think to break it down to simple terms, it's just a struggle of power. Can we be the people to influence? But, I mean, who are we? We are a bunch of activists, and them is maybe the city as we know it. And where is the people? Where is the participation? So I think it's a participation on a very sort of shallow level. So as a mid-conclusion, I think it's rather difficult to link the idea of the urban screen to the imagination that this will bring about a more democratic, open, participatory society. Using this conference, I would like to look at another issue which is very prominent here, which is the impact of technologies which are not brought to facades, but which are more individual, our individual devices. And I think you know more than me about these things, but I see their impact on urban space as well. And I ask myself, of course, is it something which could change the picture here? And here again, I might be rather destructive in the beginning, saying that for most reasons I see that the advent of these devices and these technologies, which for instance give us information about the city, will not strengthen the idea of the city in the traditional sense. And that's what I always refer to. The traditional sense of the city as an urban environment where we have a shared experience is not strengthened by anything as these new technologies. As an example, if you go back in history to the advent of the motorized modernism, which I think mainly took place in places like North America, you had a very similar idea that there are a lot of technologies which make the city more functional, more easy to use. You know, you have your own house, your car, and all the functions are spread out. It's a very parallel idea to understand the city as something that is very functional and where you can make life easier. Still, it created a situation where the desire to have an urban home was not entirely fulfilled. For many people, North American cities became problematic, and it was, I think, an Austrian who invented the idea of the shopping mall, which initially was something that was not only thought as a place to buy, but also an artificial place of community inside a city landscape which wouldn't have this natural center. And I think the similarity of trying to make, you know, to compensate a development which is brought about by new technologies, through these technologies, might lead to unwanted results. Actually, I would say that these technologies, these individual gadgets we have, are on the opposite side. They are on the opposite side of urban screens, as they allow with very little means to more or less do the same, to have a projection of data into the environment. Here, I think the conventional format, I think Google announced the release of a cheap data glass, and I think we have been with this promise for 20 years now that we will get augmented reality, and ultimately augmented reality will bring about sort of an individualized environment. It's not about the information I'm talking. I'm not talking about that there are certain restaurants, places to go to. I'm talking about the possibility to basically exchange and mediate your entire environment. You have these glasses, you look through the glasses, and you choose what you want to see. Do you want to see homeless people? No? Click, and it will be mediated away. Or you want to have a different look of the buildings? Yes, you can have it. You can choose your Gothic city, your modern city, your historic city. It's all possible with augmented reality. And depending also on the package that you buy, you can have different degrees of advertising, or maybe if you pay more, even no advertising. Funnily, that's an example of augmented reality already being used to superimpose advertising. So that's the direction we are heading. So I think here we have another technology that brings about a city that could be fully customizable, where I have my own environment and I choose my own social group I belong to and have my own experience shared maybe with a few people, where we decide to have the same projections in our environment, but which in the end have very little to do with the idea of the urban space as a space where we all share one experience. It's a different idea. And I think it will be ultimately destructive for the idea, for the concept of the urban media facades, as long as they stay so expensive. To come to the end, being so destructive, I did this to plow away maybe some of the nice to have beliefs about these technologies and their possible effect on urban space. And I believe that there is something good. Maybe it's even though that on a different level things come to a new solution. For instance, bringing the idea of the individualized city forward further, same as the motorized city of the 20th century did, it further will weaken the economic concept of the city. Today we already have the phenomenon that it's very difficult for commerce in inner cities to go on. The more you can go in these shops and on the spot you can barcode the product and buy it online cheaper, and you get it home by the time you are back home. And so, which is a very big threat to the idea that how urban economy works. So already there's a shift how these commerce is done, that you rather have flagship stores. You have a representation where you look at the product and you buy it online as the same company because it's more an internet seller. So that we have a differentiation between the function, which used to be very close to the city, and which one by one is taken out and becomes your choice. You can buy in the city, you can buy somewhere else. And at a certain point, we could have the situation that we say the city is only a construct which we don't have to go to, but we choose to go to. And maybe at that time, we come to a situation where we say, we want a place where we want to go, a place which culturally reflects our being, where we go and where we think we are reflected. In a similar way, when you go to a chic inner city area a Saturday morning and then you drink your latte macchiato, and you buy some shoes, and I don't know, do these things which are almost like the Corso, a social event. You go in the city to represent yourself, you present your social status, etc., where the city is more becoming a stage and then a functional arena. And that's maybe where the urban screens come back in. We need an idea how to design and how to equip these stages. And that, I think, to come to the end, brings the final twist into the idea what media facades could be. I don't think that media facades will be the special place in the city. It's not where you go to and you suddenly come into this event space where you have sound and this action and you have a program and all that. But the cities we need to build, which are our home, our mental and physical and emotional home, are places which are actually staged. And today, staging cities or built environment mostly looks like that. The majority of today's media facades are brick and mortar media facades. It's a fantasy design of the world, and which can be rather obvious, like here, but there's a lot, especially in Europe, places which are not so obvious anymore, where you have these so-called historic quarters in the city, and which are media design. And I think this is sort of what I'm afraid of, what media architecture will stay to be, and maybe, for instance, the work of Valbuena on a rather modest modification of architecture, which I find rather excellent, because there's no program really. It's more an aesthetic enlargement of the notion of space, might, for me, be more an interesting role model for the future. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Tim. I'd like to start off the panel again with a little introduction of everybody. To my far left are sitting Salvatore and Oriana. They teach digital design in several universities, and they are the founders of Art is Open Source and Fake Press Publishing. They work across the sciences and the arts and architecture to invent novel scenarios for cities and human beings. Next to them is sitting Evanela Lapi. She is an open data researcher at Fraunhofer Focus. Within that, she's researching on open government data Germany, in which she conducts a study on the organizational, legal, and technical aspects of open government data in Germany. On the European level, she is leading the open data work package within the EU Open Cities project, where among others, Amsterdam, Berlin, Barcelona, and Helsinki are participating. And she's focusing there on the design and developing of a technical platform for publishing open data. Next to me to the right is sitting Professor Khaldoun Alaga. He's full professor at the University of Paris Sud. He's leading the action line Digital Cities of the Future at the EIT ICT Lab, which is a European institution to bridge the gap between academy and business. And in that action line, he is developing a new citizen-centric model to improve the urban environment. He also founded a company called Green Communications and is an expert in telecommunication systems. And to my far right, whom you just heard, is Tim Ehler, the co-founder of architectural firm Realities United. A studio for art and architecture. He held a visiting professorship at Bremen's University of the Arts, taught at the Department of Architecture at the TU Berlin, and is member of the Artistic Advisory Board for the Transmediale Festival. I, of course, am Martin Spindler. I'm a freelance consultant and member of Council for the Internet of Things, a think tank, and I'll be moderating this panel. How do we start? Salvatore, Oriana, maybe you just tell us first a little about what you do.
Absolutely. We actually do quite a few things. Maybe we'll focus on the things that are more relevant to this panel. We basically research on breakthrough scenarios for our practices of daily lives. And this includes lots of interventions on the body of human beings and on cities, on city environments. And for example, relevant to this panel, we really focus on, so in fact I was really impressed by the notion of screen, of urban screen, of what can be considered a screen, because we have a very wide definition of what can be a screen and what a screen can do to support your modification, because we are human beings that are mutating now. Okay, we have mutated. There is this wonderful book by Paul Duguay which speaks about the Sony Walkman. The Sony Walkman was a breakthrough product because when you put your headphones on, you actually had the tool to modify your reality, okay? So you actually had a way to critically construct your reality. So everyone probably has tested on some headphones, and you can construct your reality around you, and it's a tool for critical intervention on the space around you, okay? And now we are radically more into it. So what we do, for example, is explore on this kind of concept. I think I have a big voice, I lowered my volume. Except for radio is perfect. And for example, one thing which we have to deal with a lot, happily deal with a lot, is architecture itself. Because, you know, there is urban planning. Urban planning is a very complex activity which involves lots of people who do very specific things, and their objective is to understand what is what the territory is like, what the communities are like that will be inside the territory, and so they say, okay, this space will be mainly for living, this will be for commerce, this will be for blah blah blah, entertainment, etc., etc. So they have a plan of space, of what the built city will look like. But now, for human beings, something really interesting happens. Imagine you are running in a park, okay? You're running happily, you're sweating, and you have your mobile phone on your pocket. The phone rings, you pick it up, it's in airport mode, don't worry. You pick it up, and you get a call from your business associates. No matter what urban planners said, that place, maybe a park bench, would turn into a mobile ubiquitous office for a few moments. Okay? So that is an intervention on a temporary but powerful intervention onto public space, because you actually change, reprogram the space. And so we do this systematically. We try to create tools, methodologies, and most of all, daily practices using technologies, but also, who knows, workshops, talking with people, to create ways in which information, the access of information, the access of the possibilities to interact with people, buildings, things, objects, can allow you to express yourself, because we have a view of the city which is polyphonic, so which is an expression, a place in which multiple voices can be expressed, and in which, most important of all, the interstices where multiple voices meet is very powerful and valuable, because that's where intersubjective and intercultural experiences take place. Okay, so this is what we do.
Salvatore has spoken a lot about what we do, so maybe for a second question. Yeah.
Okay. Evanila, you're working on open data and how open data can be made accessible. Could you first off tell us a little about that? And second off, when we're talking about open data, there's always the notion of participation of the public with that data. Do you agree with Tim that when participation comes up, it's a breakdown of the major systems?
So, maybe at the beginning I will explain very shortly what open data is, because maybe you have heard about it, but not really got a definition. So open data is, in order to consider some data like as open, it is very important that the data is machine readable, it is published in open standard, and very, very important, it is published under an open license. What we at Fraunhofer Focus do is that we are very much technical-oriented institute, which means we build platforms so that public administration can easily publish such kind of data. So that data can be not only published, but also of a high quality, and this means that also high quality apps can be developed and used by the citizens. Regarding participation, I can also maybe give some examples of a project where I currently work on. So it is Open Cities, and maybe some of you have already heard during several presentations done today at Republica. So open data, it's you can build very innovative application, and we have very good examples from apps contests running in many countries, like in Boston, but also here in Amsterdam or in Berlin. So then the users, and most interesting are, for instance, apps which use sensor data, real data. For instance, very useful could be you can check through an app where you can rent a car or a bicycle, and if it is available now. So, and for the participation, a very successful method, I can say open source, crowdsourcing. So if you have a problem to solve, and this can be also a problem which is connected to all of us, we can use methods like crowdsourcing and solve it. So,
thank you very much.
ecosystem about how we could offer, how we could create the citizen-centric model and to give more facilities and tools to the citizen to have democratic, to have more influence in the democratic life in a city. How to, for example, communicate their opinions to the municipalities, and how, for example, to make action to have the opinion also of the citizens. So in this ecosystem, we start by, for example, the infrastructure. So how to build a new infrastructure where we could, citizens could talk between each other in a peer-to-peer mode and with zero configuration. So we could, for example, build a network on demand in a few seconds. Then we could communicate between each other, collect data. And then we also have some actions, some activities on the open data, how to use those data in order to make applications. And then of course we have some activity on the privacy, and also one of the activity that we are looking for is how to find the business model, because it's very nice, for example, to have a huge amount of data, to work on those data, to have also people working with, to provide applications, but we need, to motivate the developers, for example. So why people they are going to develop application from the data, but also we need to motivate citizens to go to use those applications. So this business model could be like commercialization study, but also in other forms, not necessarily, for example, making business, winning money. So it could be something like more in how we say eco-responsibility, for example, to reduce the pollution in the city, to enhance the urban spaces, etc., etc. So one of our results of last year, it was how to, for example, if we are in if we need a connection like a Wi-Fi or to have 3G connection, so most of the time we have like an antenna, and we know that if we go through this antenna, we could have a connection, and that's it. But if you could have more information about the network, so the operator, for example, or the provider could give you more information about how many users, for example, are connected to this antenna, how is the quality from this antenna, and maybe much more information about that. So in that case, for example, you could create an application, you could see the topology of the network, you could see if there are a lot of users, for example, are using this antenna, and few number of users are using this antenna. So those could, for example, in an eco-responsibility behavior, just walk for a few meters to go to that antenna in order to switch off this one and then to reduce the energy consumption of the network. So this kind of results we done last year, and so for now what we provide is more like testbed platforms and also living labs, so an area where people that could come to those living labs and then experiment all the work that we do, but also to have some new ideas. So.
Thanks. You mentioned something, the both of you, which I think is tremendously important in the context, is that we live in a world of more and more sensor data, which is more and more necessary to the management on the workings of a city. So we want to know more about the energy consumption of the city to make it more eco-friendly. And you, Tim, mentioned that the city at the core should be a shared urban experience. The question I now have is how does all this data and the shared urban experience go together? To Tim.
It was a question if there's a shared urban experience and what constitutes that. I think we are on two parallel tracks. One is the possibility to develop these technical systems and to have data, shared data, open platforms, etc. And the other element, which is the idea that there are particular spaces inside the city which I can identify, which are special, where something happens and where I stage a cultural self-identification event. And I think there are two worlds collide. One is a world where I can easily multiply things. I can make just, this channel, this antenna is full, I create another one. And this collide with an economy which is based on the opposite principle. The economy of the inner city is based on the idea there's a tightness, there's a limitation of surfaces, for instance, that you could use. And I think these two elements come together and create maybe weird results. I don't know, I cannot predict really what they are, but I think the idea behind this is quite opposite.
The question then becomes if can technology, especially in the sense of a individualized intervention, which you just mentioned, maybe supplant the tightness which necessarily restricts the shared media surfaces.
Can it neutralize it? Yes, I can. It can, I believe, but I think we have to make decisions. You cannot on one side prolong a romantic idea of a city which has a center, where something is very special, and then say, okay, we can have this sort of like limitless idea of an urban space. I think they're two different ideas. And you can make these choices. I mean, there are models in this world of cities which do not have a single center, at least have many centers, or more a linear structure. I think there are models for that. But I think very much with the discussion which is connected to the urban screens, I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, I feel that there's a longing for a rather traditional idea of a city which has an identifiable center, and where I can say, this is where it happens, and it's a special place, and it has a value for us, and which is a reason for us to go to. You can have a different reason to go to a place. I can be maybe the most important person in my peer group, and I'm like, everyone can track me, and so maybe people want to be where I am, like a guru, and you don't need an urban space. But I think that's a different idea from what we are discussing here with the idea that we have these screens, at least as they appear today in the cities.
Seeing screens as interfaces for the city, Salvatore, you earlier told me that you're very much researching how people interface with the city. And talking of the city centers, I kind of come back to what you mentioned earlier, that you said that many interfaces for the city serve multiple purposes. Could you expound on that, please?
I want to do 2 examples, maybe do 1 each. Yeah. Because I really talk through projects. So I wanted to briefly describe, because they're instrumental to this discussion. One project is a neighborhood-based urban screen, and the other one is an augmented reality project for supermarkets. The augmented reality system for supermarkets was called squatting supermarkets. So the idea that you know how a supermarket is. As soon as you enter inside the supermarket, you become the victim of very few voices who decide whatever you hear, see, listen to, watch. And so we decided, okay, well, and there's also someone here who did, there's Julian Oliver somewhere, I don't see him, who did before us, in fact was an inspirator for us, a very interesting project on advertising. So we actually stole the concept, took him, borrowed, let's say, and we used it, we applied it, we squatted the concept, so it's convenient, and we applied it to supermarkets. So what did we do? We used the computer vision technology so that people could grab their phone, and when they were at the supermarket, they could just look at the label of products, and logos of products actually became a content management system, and open, so that people could actually write on the logos of products. And so we did workshops, taking students into supermarkets. So everything inside the supermarket became like a blog, okay? You could just post images, videos, text. We even published a service which is by MIT, which is called source map, open source map, which you get a product and you can actually expand it to wherever its parts come from. And so people could actually, we had people writing in recipes, shampoos, saying, okay, all my hair fell off with this shampoo. The weirdest things, okay? But the thing is that people claimed a space through something which was a screen. So a label on a glass of on a bottle of water became an urban screen. So this was the first experiment. And the other experiment was Connecticity Neighborhood Edition. What do you want to tell about that?
Yeah, Connecticity. So Connecticity is a kind of family of projects started in 2009, but this special, so the idea of city and connection, and this special project we're talking about, so the neighborhood version of Connect City was born 1.5 years ago. We presented it in Rome, and the basic idea is that you have a screen and you can visualize messages info visualization of messages coming from a social network, but in the area, in the very near area, in the neighborhood. So this simple, what I'm saying is very simple, no? But is in the same time so powerful, because in the middle of a street, through this screen that was projected on a wall, you can see what people in your neighborhood are saying, and also are saying publicly. Because also a very, maybe also another important thing that was mentioned in the presentation is the idea of public space. Okay, so a new kind of public space we are living in. I'm sorry and apologize with my English is not that evoluted, but I hope you understand me. And sometime I will ask you to translate for me, as always. So this I also would like to share and to discuss with all of you this idea of new public space. And I want to say two more words about squatting supermarket as a new kind of public space. For example, this application, when we put the application on the Apple Store, it was stopped for possible trademark misuse. I actually trying to understand what that means. By the way, what we do through a squatting supermarket is something that socially is completely accepted and happens all the time. For example, if you go on internet, is full of sites and places where people speak about brand and say that my hair, I lose my hair with this shampoo, or everything. But when we put this kind of social process, normal social process, to this new public space, something was wrong for them. So maybe it could be also something very interesting to speak about. You want to tell more?
Just because I wanted to really focus on one issue of this. I'm sorry if I get long. It will be just one word. Is the most interesting piece of these two projects is that the mobile version, the one in your pocket, was really, really successful. The people actually really enjoyed doing the thing and actually completely transformed an experience, the experience of the supermarket. The supermarket is built to enter, choose as fast as you can, go to the counter, pay and leave. Instead, it changed completely. Also among people, let me see that, what you're looking at on your mobile phone. And when we put the urban screen, the first thing that people in the neighborhood said is, can I have it on my mobile phone? Yeah. And that's fantastic, because people were trying to say, okay, I know this guy, he's saying, so that's remarkable. So a very portable and wearable urban screen.
Yeah, can I? No. Can I can? For sure? Yeah. Okay, sorry. It's okay. And another thing, you were talking in your first speech about this idea of, I really like the link between totalitarianism and, facade, this idea of big, enormous facade. But when you use a facade to show, for example, in the idea of connectivity neighborhood, or also another interesting project we did in this case that is versus, so the possibility to, it's the same thing. Sorry. Is that it becomes immediately, for people see these infoscapes in front of them, becomes a tool for consciousness, for new consciousness about the environment, a new way to see town and to have information about the environment they live in. So it's also about wisdom and consciousness, this possibility to represent in a new
about the space you're in defines your experience of the space and the consciousness of the space, which is what I gather, what open data in a sense tries to achieve, to have citizens more involved with their environment, to have citizens more involved with the politics of their cities, and to experience their city better. Evanela, could you just explain to us, I mean, from the face of it, it looks like an obvious conclusion. Open data would be used by the citizens who are interested in their city. Why is there?
So it is true what Tim said, that it's not only about technologies, because for instance we have now built a very nice platform with the tools, but it's also about participation of the public agencies, so government, and it's not only about technology. So in what I can say is that it's also a push, a drive on also on the legal framework, in order to somehow trigger public agencies to release data, to publish data as open data. So what we have done through our platform is that we have introduced very nice social media tools and elements, like for instance user can enter and can browse for data, but they can also comment it, rate it, or ask the public servants for new data, which might be an interest, how they can maybe also present new idea for requesting new data which are not yet available. So, and all this communication, so on one hand we have the government, the public agencies, and on the other hand we have citizens, and through our platform we bring this together. So somehow make an easy communication. But the data, it's not only about participation of the citizen, but somehow to bring more transparency of I can maybe bring you an example of a very nice application which was developed based on public data in US, when they did a very nice visualization tools showing through a map, through a tree, where does the money goes. They visualize the public spending. So, and all this, all these tools, these platforms and new services bring more transparency of different categories or areas. But I can say it's not only about technologies, because it needs participation of the public sectors to do that. And at the moment, there is no obligation to do that. So there are some EU directives or national laws in different cities, but they do not obligate the public sector to do. Therefore, we are trying to do by showing nice use cases of benefiting from the open data. And the good thing is just there are thousands of apps which currently are running and using open data. You can go to Open Data Berlin portal, and you can go through the apps gallery or apps galleries in US, data.gov or data.gov UK, and you can see very nice tools which were developed based on open data to make the life of the citizens easier.
Thank you. From what I figure, where they're talking almost exclusively about the data supplied by the state, which leads me back to a question which was posed earlier by you, Tim. The question of the who versus whom in the definition of the open of the city space. You posited that the navigation and the information display in the city could be subject to fragmentation, but in the current state is very much a power struggle. How? I mean, I know it's a bit tough to ask that question to you as you try to open up the space, but do you have any ideas how we could make all the information that's surfacing from open data sources actionable, not in front of your computer, but in the city itself?
Do I have more fantasy than you experts? No. I find it interesting that these things exist, and I listened, Oriana at Salvatore, very closely what you said about. I mean, you just said the display is an urban display because it's in the city somehow. But I think it's a very good example how it's a counterculture. Usually, if you have the shopping mall or the supermarket, the space defines the control of the owner. So the owner usually is a supermarket owner, and the control extends to the information that's on the products. Only that person decides, or only that company. And now you have this new level of information which invisibly goes through the wall of the supermarket and is available and puts another layer, an augmented layer of information in front of the product or the building or whatever. And I think first, the only thing I can see so far, it's a massive crisis for the conventional business of these people who are built on control. I mean, the next thing, I mean, that was just augmentation, but of course, you know, you are artists, the next one makes an application which says, okay, here it costs €5, go next door, it costs only $3.90. And I mean, that's another strike for these people. And another button says, don't go here, don't go next door, go on the internet, only $1.99. And then you're close to the position that the people driving the supermarkets will say, no, it's not our business anymore. They will close down the supermarket. So the only thing I can so far is that we have a massive counterculture rising, which very often is good. You have transparency, you know, you can see these people are corrupt and they waste money, and these people sell products which are built on blood of exploitation of people, etc. You have all this information, but the first thing that we will see, I think, is the crisis of the people who are running the conventional business. I think that's what we are about. We have a conventional idea of the city, which is built on certain principles, and we are about to change it. And we don't know yet what is the new configuration. And personally, I only have very few ideas. The one I mentioned is that I believe there will be a need to reconstruct a city as a place of social interaction. I think that's where the media facades come back in. But all this data stuff now is more corrosive quality.
Just to add a comment, because we forgot a very important dimension in the new urban space is the immigration to the city. I mean, we have more and more immigration to the urban space. People, they leave the countryside to go to the city. And in the future, we will have big problems, I mean, in the resources. For example, how to use the water, how to reduce the pollution, how to reduce also transportation time, how to avoid going to the supermarket maybe n times because I forgot this and this and this. And I mean, we have to reconfigure all this, the urban space in order to avoid conflicts between people. Because if we are running for a resource and if obtaining this resource is very tough, then we will have more stress, we'll have more conflicts, and people, they will hate each other. So this is very important. So if we could, for example, avoiding, I mean, if those different things to send you to the correct area in order to buy the product with the right price that you want. This will reduce, that you have to move from place to place, so you reduce the energy consumption, you reduce the pollution, etc., etc. And this is only an example. It could be also for the water, for the electricity, for all the other resources in the city. So in 2050, the number of people living in urban spaces will be huge comparing to now. So, and right now we have some difficulties. So imagine ourselves in 2050. So this is very important.
To ask a question right back at you, Khaldun. How can we solve this?
Your responsibility.
No, of course. ICT is a tool. In order to provide many optimizations for citizens to improve this. So it could be, for example, if I take the example of open data. So not only municipalities or public instances. We could also have companies like transportation companies, like telecommunication companies to provide data. So this is for now, it's very, very difficult to have because they don't want to provide the data because you will have many people that are developing applications to show how this company, for example, was providing bad performances. So we give money to that company and then the performances are not here. So this is why they don't want to give those data for public. But governments are making some pressures on those companies to provide data by giving, for example, some funding or some reducing the taxes, etc., etc. But also if we have one company in a country making this, so we will propagate this model to the other countries and then we will have all those data in maybe 10 years. This is only an example, and then you could develop applications, for example, instead of taking your car to go to that direction, you could improve the carpooling. You could also, for example, reduce the number of buses in a city. So in that case, you will reduce the energy consumption. You will reduce, the using of road systems, etc., etc. So this is an example, but we could find a huge number of examples. And of course, artists and architects are very welcome to help people from ICTs to provide the correct tools. But behind all of those things, the business model is very important. If we develop applications and no one is going to use the application, this is like wasting time. It's very important to see how push people to develop applications and also how push people to use those applications.
In fact, I was really, we are really interested in the idea of business model on one side and on the idea of how people use these things on the other side. Because what I wanted to highlight is that we really don't trust people who give answers lately, because this, I think, is not a time for answers. We can make assumptions. It's just too much of a transformation. I totally agree on that. I don't have any answers either. We don't have any answers either. But we are yes, we are actually really observing things and proposing things. So that's one really important thing. It's a dangerous moment for this because actually you propose, I see opportunities, Oriana sees opportunities, we see different opportunities together, people see other opportunities even more, but they are all suggestions. Instead, the idea of taking these as solutions is a very different approach, and that's very dangerous. What we can see clearly is that the accessibility of data, not both qualitative and quantitative, both database oriented and relation oriented, human relation oriented, are keys. And in these two issues there is the idea of not forgetting who is left behind, because for example, we do lots of projects in which we capture data from social networks. We always explicitly assess the ideas of digital inclusion and digital divide. Because if you make statistics, it's very dangerous to make statistics and not take into account the sample, okay, how your sample is formed. So these two issues, observing relations among people, because we're making a very simple example, a corner of a street in Turin, near a really big market in Turin. That corner of the street was a very different thing for many different people. For one person it was a place of business, for one person it was a place for traversal, for one person it was a place for worship. So being able to observe and to also think about who is left out, because okay, the solution, okay, can look like an app, but it will not be an app, because not everyone has this, okay, has this mobile phone, or things like that, is two really important things.
Okay. And with that, I unfortunately have to close this panel already, because we're running out of time. The aspect of digital inclusion is something to keep in the back of the mind in all of those discussions. I invite all of you in the audience to join us upstairs for the city's roundtable and to ask any questions you might have upstairs. Thanks a lot.
So, oh, ein paar Leute sind noch da.